Today on the TMZ Podcast.
Welcome to the TMZ Podcast. Harvey Levin here.
Katie here.
And Jason.
So Chrissy Teigen opened up about something that I think is just fascinating. She said that although she told the public she had a miscarriage 2 years ago, it was actually an abortion. And it is really interesting the way she's processed this and now explained it. But what she seems to be saying is that, she had said before it was simply a miscarriage and tragically a miscarriage. Yep. And, everybody accepts it at face value. And it seems like that's the way she kind of processed it back then. But she said it was actually an abortion. And her logic, I think, does kind of align with the overturning of Roe versus Wade. She said that, the baby, it seems like the baby was about 20 weeks.
Right.
She was about 20 weeks pregnant.
Baby, right.
And that she said that the doctors made it clear this baby would not survive birth and that Chrissy could well die.
Right.
So this was a case of basically preserving the life of the mother, knowing that the child would never survive. And that was what she was faced with. So it sounds like, and this is a little bit of a leap, but it sounds like what she's saying is the doctors induced birth knowing that the baby wouldn't survive, but it was necessary to save the life of Chrissy. Right. Does that seem right?
It does, right. And so instead of going through an abortive procedure where they typically
terminate in vitro, they instead brought the child out who was still living but didn't have a chance for survival outside the womb. Wasn't going to have a life if brought to term. So, but
they brought it to term. That's the distinction that she's drawing. It's not a very big one, right? For her personally, and the invasiveness in her body, it's a huge decision. But in terms of sort of the morality, the legality, it doesn't seem to be a very material distinction between this child was not going to live.
Well, I think her.
And she had partial placenta abruption, right? So that's when the placenta detaches from the womb, so it deprives the baby of oxygen. So we actually
is dangerous.
And is dangerous, yes. Causes really heavy bleeding in the mother. So we actually, she obviously didn't elaborate on this. We don't know what state the baby was in, right? We don't know.
Well, we do know that she said that the baby would not survive.
The doctors
were clear on that.
Had absolutely no chance. Yeah,
right.
That's the word she used.
Right.
And so I guess what she seems to be saying is she said once Roe versus Wade got overturned, she said that it became clear to her. I guess she started thinking about it. And then she said she regretted not just saying it back then, although it seems like she was saying she didn't quite understand that this was an abortion. I'm not sure what it is, but what I think the point of this is that if you look at what's going on with doctors around the country now, especially where states are restricting abortion, severely restricting it, a lot of doctors are saying, we don't know what to do. The law is not clear. They've criminalized things. Yeah. We don't know whether we can do it, can't do it.
So Katie and I were just talking about
So it seems like that's what is her point is, that's how important this was. In my case, would a doctor have done that under a restrictive law?
Right. Well, at 20 weeks, right? Because Lindsey Graham is now
15.
trying to pass a law at 15 weeks, and people put all these restrictions on, like, oh, well, if it's 20 weeks, it's gone too far. Absolutely no abortion, and so that's why I think she's coming out saying, hey, look, this was my situation. Right. You saw what I went through. She was devastated after she's still, she'll never be the same. Just devastated, and so I think that's her way of saying, look, this was technically an abortion. Yes. I had to have it.
So I think it's really important. Lindsey Graham, senator from South Carolina, has come forward proposing a bill in the United States Senate to criminalize abortions after 15 weeks. And this would apply to every state in the country, including states that would otherwise have legalized abortion. And the law basically says there are exceptions for rape, incest, and life of the mother. But the problem is, and this is what we're talking about, like if a doctor performs an abortion in Chrissy's case, and prosecutors decide to go after the doctor saying, we don't think it was actually for the life of the mother. The doctor's going to have the burden to show, that it was for, you're going to get in these debates, these medical debates about what was truly necessary and what wasn't. And if a jury thinks that it wasn't truly necessary, a doctor's going to be criminalized.
Which is why a lot of doctors are reluctant right now.
Right.
But I think this goes way beyond Lindsey Graham, and I think he's almost irrelevant to this because there are so many states now that have said 6 weeks,
Yes.
conception they're
Yes.
talking about.
Yeah.
And so a lot of the doctors in the states where these new laws are popping up are saying, and the way the exceptions are written, they're vague,
Yes.
it's unclear, and we're basically rolling the dice on whether we become criminals by doing.
You'd almost rather have these states say no abortions ever, just to give clarity to the medical professionals and the women, and they need to go somewhere else.
Yeah, that's a tough.
Well,
It's
yeah,
a tough one, but
yeah.
but this idea that doctors are going to be potentially prosecuted for doing something. So there's rape and incest exceptions.
Well, remember, I mean, there are laws now where they want to prosecute Uber drivers who drive somebody to a
Right. But,
Oh, yeah.
But there are rape and incest exceptions. What if a girl comes in and says she was the victim of rape? The doctor performs the abortion. It turns out that the woman wasn't the victim of rape. Under these laws, the doctors will be prosecuted. This
Yeah.
is insanity.
Yeah.
We're on the tipping point here.
And the other thing is, I got to say, Lindsey Graham is such a hypocrite that, look, this has nothing to do with somebody's views, whether they're pro-life or pro-choice. It's not about that. It's that before Roe was overturned, Lindsey Graham a year ago was so clear. He said, this issue should be left to the states.
Right.
Which, by the way, overturning Roe doesn't criminalize abortion. It just leaves it to the states.
Right.
So his mantra was, it should be left to the states. So now that it's left to the states, he's trying to make a federal law.
Yes.
It's utterly
It's
hypocritical.
ridiculous. He's the worst.
Well, it's not just ridiculous. It's so fundamentally hypocritical.
Yeah.
However you feel, it doesn't matter. I mean, you can be pro-choice, you can be pro-life, you can be whatever you want. But when you look at this, and he said this a year ago, leave it to, which is it, Lindsey Graham? Is it just what you want and you get there however you want to get there?
Well, Lindsey,
Yes.
but he would respond with, this is murder. And yes.
Then why did he say leave it to the states?
Because at the time that was the option. It was leave it to the states, but now that we are living into the states, we want more because it's murder and these children are being killed.
I'm sorry, it's hypocritical.
It's hypocritical and it's disgusting and everything else. But that's
Our
that's
country's
the-
hijacked by religious fanatics. It's
Okay, we are going to move on. Actually, we got some interesting stuff to talk about. Your guys' call because we have good stuff. You call.
Oh wow.
Oh, spin the wheel. Tom Brady?
Okay, let's do Tom Brady.
All right.
All right. Go for it.
Not living with his wife, apparently.
Not living with his wife. Worse than anybody thought, right? 11 days, thought he was doing Dancing with, no.
Thought it was resolved.
Masked Singer. Thought it was
Yeah.
Masked Singer.
And then
right?
right.
He's
and then,
like, I should have done the mask
And then
singer.
Yeah,
dealing with
really.
some personal things. We had no idea what that was. And then where you understand they're having a few marital issues, now they are separated.
separated, and
Are they separated or just living separately? Is it the same thing?
it's the same thing.
Oh.
I think it's the
I
same
mean, right?
thing.
Because I feel like separated
You
is an
asking for a
official.
friend? What's happening
asking for a
here?
friend, the steps you take. No, because separated sounds like we've officially decided. In my mind, Giselle and Tom have just
we're
are
not
just living in separate houses to like take a beat, right?
Does anybody
Maybe.
come back?
You can't even say that with a straight
know.
face.
I know.
They
My
haven't filed legal
God.
They
haven't
haven't filed
fi-
separation.
they
Well,
haven't
but
said-
true.
that you don't have to file
Right.
legal separation to be separated.
Correct, you do not.
They're separated right now. And what's interesting about this is, again, I want to get back to what she said in Elle magazine, because everybody thinks, which to me is silly, and it always struck me as silly until I think I finally got it. Everybody was saying this was about, Tom's going to be away for all these weekends and the kid. It's not about being away. She's worried about his health, I think, because of CTE. When she said to Elle, football is a violent sport, and then goes on to say, I want Tom to be present for our kids. Present to me isn't in the house versus on the road. Present is mentally present.
Yeah.
Present is she doesn't want him suffering the effects of CTE the way so many other people have. He's getting older. He's more vulnerable. He said he was going to retire. We were in a headspace where all of a sudden our family was together. Tom was safe. Now he's not. I feel so strongly about this because she wished him well during the game a couple of days ago. That's not somebody who is just fundamentally angry. And she even
Right.
said he's got to pursue his joy. And I think what she's saying is, this is what the concept of irreconcilable differences and I'm not saying they're getting divorced, but that is the core of what irreconcilable differences is. It doesn't mean that it's angry or nasty. It just means
There's a difference.
We
that
want
can't get
different
past.
things.
there is
We
a
want
fundamental.
different things.
That's right. And,
That's
and you can respect the other person, but just say, it doesn't align with my life.
Yeah.
And it seems like that's what she's saying.
But it's interesting because he's come out and he did an interview with Jim Gray recently. And in that interview, he really put a lot of the onus of the difficulty of playing football, not on his head trauma. He's never talked about that. It's about how much time he's away from his family. So I think maybe there is more difference there, that she's really worried about the CTE issue. He chalks it up to, I need more time with my family. He talks about he has.
Well, if he needs more time with his family, that's how he retired, but then he unretired.
Yeah,
But
he said he hadn't had Christmas in 23 years, Thanksgiving in 23 years, celebrated birthdays during football season. Like, he was ready for that, and I think she was definitely ready for him to be back around.
She wanted him back, but
and now that
but you
he's
think
doing
the
it, she's
main
like,
issue is
I'm not going to sit on the sidelines anymore. And I get that. She's been at every game for the last, how long have they been married? A decade, right? So she's like, I'm done.
But I
get
don't think she's saying, "Oh, I just don't want to go to more games. I
No.
don't want him away." Look, I have no idea whether Tom Brady may show subtle signs of something, but when you're playing that long, even though the quarterback's the most protected person in the field, you still take your lumps.
She says he's had a number of concussions.
Yeah.
She said that in the past.
And I wonder if maybe she saw something. And maybe it was subtle, because have you ever had like a relative or a pet or something where you see something is slightly
He is teeing you
A
up,
pet.
right?
no, yeah, I actually mean that.
Oh.
Where something is slightly
Slightly off.
wrong and it starts to really worry you.
Yeah, of course, especially if
all have
if
aging
he's
parents,
on the
yeah.
if
Yeah.
he's on the field, then every time he forgets the milk at the store, she's like, "Oh my God, is it CTE?"
Right.
No,
And he's like, "No, I just forgot the milk."
no,
And she's
but
like,
you're
"No, it is."
You're
Head
so
trauma.
but you're so right.
Right. There's a lot. It's
And so maybe
tough.
she's legit. I mean, look, she is legitimately worried, but maybe she's even seen what she perceives as a sign here and there.
Right.
So it comes out of love.
Oh, maybe she also thinks it's a giant pain in the ass and is tired of his shenanigans. And
it could also just
he
be
lied
one of
to
those-
her and said he was going to quit, and he didn't.
and it could be one of those things where she's like, "All right, I'm leaving," and then now there's your ultimatum.
Anybody
I'm in
ever
a different house, so pick.
Anybody ever come back from this? A relationship's come back from this? Is a
Yeah.
celebrity relationship that's come back from separation?
The only reason this
I guess they're
the only reason
Larry
this
can't.
could be an exception, because generally no, but the reason this might be an exception is there's a resolution
He's
to
gonna
this.
retire.
There's a
Right.
resolution to
Right.
this, and the resolution is at the end of the season.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's it seems like that's in her hands more than anything right now.
Yeah.
Well, retirement's in his. I mean,
If he plays beyond this year, I don't think there's any hope.
no.
Oh God,
Agree
no,
with that.
no.
Okay, we're moving on. Jason, your choice.
Oh, good. I kind of like Britney Spears. Most fascinating story of 2022, right? So apparently she and Jamie are working with TriStar, and there's been all these shenanigans, financial stuff, allegations between TriStar and Jamie Spears about how they were bilking Britney out of millions of dollars.
Allegedly.
Allegedly. And that's why I said allegations right there.
Oh, I'm sorry. Fair enough.
But apparently they're resolving it, or they're trying like hell to resolve it. You have some insight in this, Harv? What do you think?
There is a lot going on. So we are told, I got to be careful how we say this. We have sources with knowledge of what has been going on here, with direct knowledge, that apparently, not too long ago, or shortly after the conservatorship was over, there were overtures made to Britney's lawyer, Matt Rosengart. Okay, you're so angry, you think we've done this and that. Let's talk about settling, and he didn't want to have anything to do with it. He has now had a change of heart over the last month or so, we're told, and that he has gone to them and said, yeah, we are interested in settling it, which is not a surprise because,
It's
you know,
ultimately
Wanted to
about
be
money
done,
at this
right.
point, right?
and also, you know, at a point when you go to trial, there's risk on both sides.
Absolutely.
So, you know, what we're told is that he made a settlement offer of around $7 million.
Matt Rosengart.
That wanted
demanded
$7 million
somebody. Yeah.
to settle it from a combination of TriStar, which is the company that managed Britney, and Jamie Spears. They were told, they asked, why $7 million? What's the point of 7? And they didn't get an answer. So they said, well, forget it. Well, Matt Rosengart, we're told, has gone back to them and that they are now open to settling this for what we don't know, and what I'm told for what they don't know. Yeah. But there's this they're kind of, it's almost like, dogs kind of, going in a circle and sniffing each other, so they don't know. They haven't put it on the table as far as we know. But there seems to be a mutual interest in ending this right now.
And I got to tell you, if we're talking about numbers of $7 million, it'll settle. If we were talking in numbers of $70 million, there's some real issues there. It's hard to settle for those kinds of.
Are you a little bit surprised that the initial offer was $7?
I'm shocked it's that low.
Yeah.
Given the claims that Britney through Matt Rosengart have made about the maltreatment and the theft and the fraud allegedly perpetrated by Jamie and TriStar, I am stunned that it's not $70 million.
Well, it says something, doesn't it? Because one of the things that I think Matt Rosengart has a big problem with is just about everything was approved by a judge.
Yeah.
So they didn't do anything that the judge didn't approve.
Yep.
Now, the two things, for me at least, that seem wrong. And by the way, I know this is an unpopular view, but I think Jamie Spears saved Britney Spears' life at the beginning of this. Right. I think he just simply saved her life. We covered this story. We followed what was going on.
To like 2007.
I'm going back to the beginning of the conservatorship.
On that.
He saved her life.
Yeah.
He was a terrible dad when she was growing up, and he stepped in when it was life or death.
And then took it too far, but definitely saved her life in the beginning.
And and look, there were doctors who said she needed this conservatorship. I think it went on too long as well.
Yeah.
The two things that I think where Jamie Spears and TriStar are vulnerable, with Jamie, I think he got 1.5% of the gate when she was performing. He had gone back. Initially, that wasn't the case. And she was making a lot of money, and he had asked for 1.5% at some point. To me, that's wrong, because a conservator should not be getting a cut of what the conservatee makes, because the conservator's focus should be solely on the welfare of the conservator.
Right.
And when there's money at stake for the conservatee, rather,
get out there and perform. I don't care what your health concerns are. I have a
because
monetary interest.
There's a
in this.
conflict.
Yes,
I mean, there's an inherent conflict.
Right.
I think that was wrong. Even though it got approved by the judge, I still think that was wrong.
Yeah.
The other thing I think is wrong is that TriStar Sports and Entertainment, the company that managed her, they were getting 5%, which is normal.
Yeah.
That's what business managers often get. 5% of what Britney made. When she was going on tour and doing all this stuff, they were making a fortune.
Yes.
A fortune. All of a sudden, Britney stops performing, and she's really not making any money. So TriStar then sends an email to Jamie and says, we're not making any money anymore, and so we want a minimum $500,000 or 5%, whichever is greater.
Right.
And Jamie said, approved.
Yes.
I think that's really wrong.
I never heard
Why
that.
would he do that?
When
Why would
you
he say
get-
approved?
Because they were all friendly. They knew each other. The allegation is that they were in cahoots with one another, and they wanted to scratch each other's back, and this is the way they continue to do it.
Or he was just sloppy in this. But it's just TriStar shouldn't do that.
Yeah.
Because when you get a percentage, the point is you're going to get probably more than you would bill normally.
Yeah.
When things are good, but that means when things are not good, you got to accept it. That's the point. You can't say when I win, I win, and when I lose, I win, which is essentially what they were asking.
Right.
And I think those two things are the two things that really stand out to me.
Really hard, and that's why you have a settlement. Maybe that's why it's not. Maybe
But the
this is
judge approved.
The judge approved all this, and
that's
also
that's problematic for Matt Rosengart.
And executors are given a lot of power. They have to make a lot of decisions. You don't want conservators. Sorry, you don't want them second guessed at every turn. But these two things really go beyond the pale. The other thing that would really concern me if I'm Matt Rosengart is ultimately Britney Spears is going to have to take a witness stand and talk about a lot of this. And I don't know that she would be I think he worries, and I was a trial litigator for a long time, and I know what it was like to put up a witness for a deposition on a witness stand who I didn't necessarily trust that I could keep on script. It's terrifying. And Brittney has shown that she can be difficult to keep on script. She doesn't always stay on script herself. And to me, Matt Rosengart is looking at one day in the future at that deposition and is worried.
Well, he's also looking post-conservatorship at what's been going on, and he might be a little bit worried.
Yeah,
There you go,
she's just
Tim.
going to get on the stand and twirl. We all know
Oh,
that.
don't say that. Jeez. Okay, last one. Your guys call Cardi B or Bhad Bhabie. You choose.
Jason, your call.
I think Bhad Bhabie is fascinating
Yeah.
stuff.
So she is another Albert Einstein, isn't she?
Yeah. So Bhad Bhabie's been invited by the Oxford Union, a famous debate society that's affiliated with Oxford University. But just to be clear at the beginning, you do not have to be a student at Oxford. You do not have to be accepted into Oxford in order to be part of the Oxford Union. It is a debate society, an old school, hundreds of year old debate society affiliated with Oxford.
It's a big deal.
It's a big deal.
And a big deal that attracted a lot of luminaries.
Luminaries. We've had multiple presidents: Reagan, Nixon, Carter, and Clinton. Queen Elizabeth II, the Dalai Lama,
Albert Einstein, Malcolm X.
Elton John,
Shakira.
The list goes on. Well, joining the illustrious ranks, people invited to speak at the student union is Bhad Bhabie.
Danielle Bregoli.
I
Catch her outside.
I love this because Danielle Bregoli was a juvenile delinquent when she was 13 years old.
Yep.
That's why she was on Dr. Phil. This was the classic moment when she said, "Catch me outside." The classic moment of 15 Minutes of Fame, that she was probably going to end up in prison somewhere because she was an absolute incorrigible teen, and that, we would be done with her. And instead, she has turned her life around. She has succeeded in music, in business, and whether you like OnlyFans or not, fact is she's made a fortune on it. She is now...
She says $50 million.
Yeah. Now, I don't know whether
Crazy.
it may be that much, maybe it's not, but it's enough to buy a really expensive house. Also, to donate, I think it was like $1.7 million to scholarship funds for low-income kids.
Yep.
Look at her.
Look at her.
She's doing great.
Look at her.
But the question would be, has she, or maybe it's not, maybe it's irrelevant, has she attained this through luck or through skill?
I don't think somebody who can do something like that is just simply lucky. And as a matter of fact, I think it's almost the opposite, that I think people wrote her off as somebody who would end up behind bars because she was so crazy. And, and I think she had it was tougher for her than the average bear. That, all of a sudden, I've got to now go from potential criminal to success. And she did it. So, well, is there luck there? There's luck in everything.
Yep.
But there's got to be some skill and thought.
I'm right with you.
Yeah.
I think it's pretty impressive what she's done. She took her, to your point, she took her 15 minutes, and lots of people get the 15 minutes, and then it fades. Most people do. All these reality stars, they come along, especially on these kind of backyard fight kind of people like Bhad Bhabie was, and she has made it into an empire.
And one of the reasons I think Oxford is really interested in her is that, you talk to kids today, what do you want to be when you grow up? An influencer. It's like a lot of people are saying, yeah, I just want to be at my computer.
I just threw up in my mouth just a little bit
Yeah.
when you said
But there's
that.
a lot of money to be made.
Yeah, because you got kids, and I'm right.
You are right. The people they admire most, I think, besides me, of course, are influencers on TikTok who have made it and are, don't really have to work for a living, do a few videos and make millions of dollars.
It's their version of wanting to be in the NBA.
That's right.
And very few do it. Right. She did it. And I think people want to hear from her on how she did it. And I know it's Oxford, but Oxford students are on TikTok. Oxford students are, influencers. They are influencers.
There's going to be a lot of people that are looking down their noses at her, for sure, right? I even think the majority of
I don't know.
You don't think so?
I really don't think so.
Huh.
I mean, when you look at a 20-year-old student, this is the thing about it. I'm sorry for bringing back to TMZ, but people would always say to me, like, what's the voice of TMZ? And it's like, we don't have a voice. We have a personality. Right. That sometimes we can be really serious, and sometimes we can be snarky, and sometimes we can be funny, and sometimes we can be sad. We don't have one voice. And a student who may be as brilliant as a student as Oxford, they can have a silly side, they can have a social side. And I think just because they're, studious and academics doesn't mean they're not interested in something like this.
Right. I tend to agree with you. And there's nothing there's nothing more or less significant about what Bhad Bhabie has done than any other actor or actress or somebody who's playing a role in Hollywood. These are all efforts to get yourself famous and make money as a result of it. And she's done it better than almost anybody.
Yeah.
There's going to be a lot of new OnlyFans account opening up at Oxford.
There might be.
Hot Ladies of Oxford.
Hot Ladies of Oxford.
Oxford on OnlyFans after her speech.
Okay, we are going to end today. I just have to say, I feel really uncomfortable about this today.
Oh, I thought you were going to thank us.
No,
Oh.
I'm not. Actually,
I thought I was going to get a compliment.
I'm especially not going to thank you, Jason.
Yeah.
Why are we agreeing on stuff all of a sudden?
Oh.
We never
Oh.
agree on everything.
That can't
This
be
is
very
terrible.
remedy.
We will change that up after the weekend, folks. Sorry about that. We'll have a good weekend.
Have a good one.